Hi.
Hey, there we go. All right, thank God. Okay, excellent. Hello, everybody. Welcome to UpLink 2021 with our talk with Shilo Prychak from New Wave Toys. I'm sure a lot of you um, are aware and have seen some of the replicade products that you've come out with. I have one here in the background. It's Dragon's Lair. It's beautiful. Good luck getting a hold of one because it seems like the minute they come out, they get snatched up right away. All right, so let's start. I want to talk to you a little bit about yourself. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the tech behind your products, and then we're going to save the Q&A for the end of the session. So everybody in chat, I know you're going to have questions and you're going to have things. We're going to get to all that, but let's get into the meat and potatoes first. So first things first. I know the story is that you met your co-founder, Peter Gould, at a game company, and you guys met each other, and then you kind of embarked on this. So tell me a little bit about that. I want to know, what were you guys doing? What was your job at the game company?
Yeah, so this particular company, some of you might remember, was called Pelican. And
Oh,
Pelican made third-party accessories, and
mhm.
they were pretty much not very good
They were not.
products.
Yeah.
They were not the best products in the world.
Mhm.
I was a buyer for Virgin Megastores, if you remember those.
Oh, absolutely, sure.
Yeah, okay. So I was the video game and collectibles buyer there for like 9 years. And I decided to make a jump when iPods came out, and it seemed like the record retailer, plus, we had records, books, movies, all that stuff, right? And
Mhm.
it seemed like it was time to move on and do something else. And
Right.
I carried some Pelican products, and I had an opportunity to go and interview there as a product manager, product developer, right? And I got hired, and it was
Mhm.
great. And on my first day, I met Peter. It was also his first day.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, and this is way back in 2004.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a while. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, we became friends and coworkers, and Peter has a extensive experience in software, and
Mhm.
I'm most of my experience is in hard goods. So, you know, here you go, 13 years later. Um, it's funny because I stayed, and as Pelican grew into PDP. And
Mhm.
all along the way, we progressed, and we continued to make better products there. And
Mhm.
Peter actually left for a stint and went to go work for Disney.
Oh, wow.
Help,
Okay.
yeah, and I stayed, and I stayed the whole time. And Peter came back eventually to
Okay.
PDP,
Mhm.
and then it was just I've always had a burning desire to start my own company and do things my own way,
Mhm.
and this and that, and Peter is a good compliment, and so we
Mhm.
got together and put together a business plan, and I quit my job, and that was 3.5 years ago now. So
A hell
it,
of a risk to take. You guys jumped into that. It's funny when you talk about the dynamic between the two of you because it reminds me a little bit of almost like the Steve Jobs Wozniak dynamic. So which one of you is Jobs and which one of you is Woz in this relationship?
I guess that would probably be Jobs.
You would be the Jobs and you would be okay.
I would probably
We're
think so, yeah.
we're definitely going to get to that. And it's funny that you mentioned that he went to work for Disney because we're going to get to that also. That's going to be part of this. Okay. So tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your education? Like, were you always going towards like more of an engineer design, or is this just something that came as you started working and it kind of you grew into it?
Um, quite frankly, I had no idea what I wanted to do when I was a kid.
Mhm.
But I always had a passion for video games, and I'm 50 now, so I'm as Gen X as you can possibly be.
Yes, you are.
I'm right there in the sweet spot. So like when I was 6 years old, like I remember discovering like Death Race, you know, and
I'm glad. Yeah, please. I'm going to go into that next about your experiences. So yeah, tell me more about Death Race and what got you, what grabbed you, because you know we all have that moment. We all have that pivotal moment where we walk into our arcade and we hear that particular sound for the first time. You know, it could be like Pac-Man sound, or it could be Colossus screaming, and you're just like, oh my God, you fall in love. So what was your moment where you were like, oh my God, I need this in my life? What was it for you?
Well, I can't exactly remember, but I believe it was after swimming practice at the YMCA, and it wasn't an arcade. It was actually, I can picture it honestly. It was like just one machine sitting there. You know, it wasn't like a full gamut of games or anything, and it was Death Race. And you know, and I was just enamored by it. You know, I was like, "What is this thing?" Right? With it, and it's a really beautiful cabinet, like the artwork and everything. It's really cool, right?
Absolutely.
And then getting to play it with the steering wheel and being a little kid who's growing up with, like, you know, playing with dinky cars and Hot Wheels and stuff, getting to like drive something, you know, and just it blew my mind.
I can relate to that. That's incredible. Yeah, of course. That was. You know, the games with the steering wheels and with the accessories were always the ones that grabbed me first. I mean, I don't know if you can relate to that, but when you walked in an arcade, you saw, you know, you could actually steer the car. It was so different, especially if you had like an Atari at home. You're like, this little joystick, and then suddenly you're like at the wheel of a vehicle. You're like, oh my God, I'm driving. You know, it felt like more than life.
Exactly. And then, you know, being from that era, I mean, Star Wars was huge, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the second game I remember is Space Wars.
Oh, and, wow.
You know, and I remember it being this rectangular, it's the asteroid ship basically versus the USS Enterprise, right? I don't know if you remember that game or not, but I mean, that blew my mind too. I mean, it was like, wow, I can play in space, you know, and it was just such a mind-blowing, cool looking cabinet, right? So those are kind of like, for me, it's been my life. It's been something I've loved, you know, from the very, very beginning. From my very first memories all through, you know, all through the 80s, all through the 90s. I was definitely an arcade rat. You know, as far as education goes, man, I tell you, my mom will vouch for me, but I would skip school and hang out in arcades. I mean, I loved it. And
that's, you know what, the best education is experience, I think. And it's most likely, I think judging from the quality of the products that you're putting out, you can tell, you can feel the passion in the build of these things. I mean, it's just solid, you know, and the detail you put into it. I don't want to go too far into the tech. We're going to get into that, but you know, just judging from you know what you're saying, it's just I'm looking at it and I go, yeah, you know, that makes sense. Everything you're saying, I can totally see it. I can feel it. It's incredible. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, arcades, great. What about consoles? Did you have consoles? Did you have an Atari and television? I mean, there was Coleco. The cool kids had Coleco, but you were one of the cool kids.
It was so, you know, back in those days, and I don't know, you know, if everybody understands this, but during the first few generations of consoles, it was always just, you know, how close could you get to the arcade experience?
Absolutely.
You know, it was always about that, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's funny. I remember playing 2600 and I was disappointed. I always thought it looked awful.
And those covers on the cartridges, right? You would see the cartridge cover, and you're like, oh my God, look at that. It's actually Luke Skywalker. I'm going to be playing. And then you like, you do this little square shooting little pellets across the screen. You know, the only game, Defender was the only one really that grabbed me that felt close to the arcade. I don't know if you remember the 2600.
I do. It was okay. It was okay. It with one button, right? You know, it's not the same. Actually, the 12600 game I will give props to was Pitfall. I thought that was
absolutely. Yeah, Pitfall was, I mean, way ahead of its time. It's funny when, you know, out of all the companies that are putting out compilations all the time, I think Atari pretty much is the king of that. I mean, they're constantly re-releasing their titles and you know, just the license everywhere, because I mean, what are they owned by now? Hotel chains or whatever? I don't even know anymore. But
it's not the same company, that's for sure. Yeah,
no, absolutely not. It's very convoluted. But you know, I actually,
right? Sorry to talk over you, but Pitfall was an Activision.
Yeah,
So
Pitfall and Pitfall 2, and both of them were just genius, way ahead of their time. Yeah, and still good to play today, I noticed as well,
I haven't played it in a long time, so I don't know if it stood up that well. But
I highly recommend you go fire it up and play for a bit. You'll go, oh my god, Pitfall 2 in particular is almost like an open world sort of game, which is just mind blowing to think that I think it was David Crane, right, who was designing these games, and he just managed to make it work, with so little memory. It's crazy to think about.
It's amazing what they did.
Technology is just absurd. It sounds crazy to think about it now, because if you told a developer now, make a game work with that, they'd be like, look at you, like you had 3 heads. So,
but it was interesting. Through those years, things were a lot different back then. We didn't have TVs in every room, especially in my house, right? I mean, we had one TV and that was it.
That was the TV.
There's no way my dad was going to let me hook up an Atari and ruin the screen.
Wasn't that the thing with it's going to ruin the screen, it's going to break the TV. And then you had to take a screwdriver, right, and then put the things in and then screw in the I mean, it was a process. We had to work to play games back then,
we did.
Cool, but it's like in my day, we had to screw in screws to make it work. And it was terrible. But at the time, it's funny. You're looking through, the eyes of your youth. It changes because everything looks so good, and then now you're like, it looks like garbage. But at the same time, you're like, I wish I could see it through the kids' eyes again, and see the magic, of it. There is definitely some disappointment, going back to a lot of those games.
There was then, but I'll tell you, it progressed quickly. And you mentioned the Colecovision. I think the Colecovision was the first one that, like the games looked good. They looked pretty close to the arcade games.
They were
and
close there. I'm trying to think. A console that got us close, and I don't think anyone did until about Nintendo, really. I mean, Coleco was the closest you could get to the arcade. The version of Donkey Kong, I believe, was superior to anything on the market.
I actually had a ColecoVision Atom that we picked up that like Woco or Zellers or some old school. I remember it was on sale, and I'm like, oh man, I want this, and it was when Atom was being cleared out, and it played all the ColecoVision games and stuff, and actually had a tape drive.
The tape drive! So my goodness! Remember that with the Commodore 64. I don't know if you ever had any of those micros back then. The Commodore was my machine of choice.
I'll tell you, it's been 20
around the Commodore 64, and I brought that thing home. And I remember the first game I loaded was Gauntlet, and it took forever. I was sitting there for about 15 minutes. I'm like, okay, here we go. It's going to happen. And you see a little line squiggling, and then suddenly it pops up, right? And you see that sprite work pop up, and you're like, oh my god, it's mind blowing at the time. I don't know if you had a Commodore or Amiga.
Vic-20 is what I remember playing Space Invaders on, and it being very good too. The Commodore Vic-20, if you remember that.
Oh yeah, the Vic-20. Yeah, I didn't have one of those, but that was the direct predecessor, I believe, to the 64 and 64C. Right? That was they came off of that to the 64.
I'm not exactly sure, but I know they did a good job with Space Invaders. It looked really good. But I'll tell you, I gotta say, my favorite console is the Vectrex, and that's the one I was allowed to get.
Oh wow, okay. Boy,
yeah.
One of our guys, Terry, recently he got a hell of a Vectrex, and I was playing it for the first time in a long time. And I just said, "Wow, this is remarkable." It's just a little piece of technology. But the overlays on and all of that is pretty incredible that they were able to be successful at all with that, given what was happening at the time technology wise.
I'm a big fan of vector graphic games, and I think a lot of that stems from the Vectrex.
I can tell that you are. So let's segue that into the machine. Let's talk a little bit about the technology and how you were able to do things that other people have been trying, right? But no one's really gotten it right. Miniaturizing and making the games play right, look right. And you managed to pull that off to a remarkable degree. you know,
Thanks.
I have to say, you know, the playability of these machines is incredible, and I just want to use this. This is the first product I bought from you guys was this guy right here. And if you could hear the micro switches in there just going off, I mean, you can tell there was some love put into this thing, and it's not a gimmick. This is a tiny little thing, but you can use this to actually play a fighting game, and you can do a fireball, you can do an uppercut, and easily the same way you would do, which is incredible for something as small and as tiny as this. And the fact that you were able to pull it off with such accuracy is just amazing. So
yeah, thanks.
I want to know a little bit about how you were able to get that level of accuracy. What did you do? What was your process? I'm sure at some point you sat down with Peter and you guys were like, all right, how are we going to make this work? So what was the thing that was like, okay, this is how we're going to make it work? What was that?
Well, I think if you back up, the most important thing was what you said about accuracy is exactly right? So if we're going to make a fighting game, it should be micro switches, and you should be able to pull off all the moves, right? We have different types of joysticks. Like for instance, on your Dragon's Lair, you could tell it's a much stiffer, shorter throw
Absolutely.
joystick.
Yes, it definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then if you look at something like Centipede, we developed a trackball, right? And all these things none of this was available off the shelf. We've had to engineer these controls.
Yes.
And the thought always was, and it's probably a little bit to our detriment, is that, okay, we'll develop a trackball, and then we'll finally have a trackball, and we can reuse it for more games.
Sure.
Or with the micro switch, if we do another fighting game, we can reuse that. Or maybe a game that requires micro switch joystick, right? And in fact, this is what's taken. We're not the quickest guys. We take time, and the process is trial and error. It is continuously like going through rounds and rounds and rounds of revisions, testing, the same product development cycle, right?
Sure.
And we're hoping that we can start reusing some of this stuff for other games, so we're not starting from scratch on everything, but we find ourselves always wanting to do something new.
Yeah, it seems like you guys hop around quite a bit with the games. Your choices are really all over the map. I mean, we went from asteroids, right? And then we something like Tempest, and then suddenly we're in Street Fighter. Suddenly we're in Dragon's Lair, and there's you could not get more different in terms of genres and games. I want to focus for a minute on this Dragon's Lair cabinet and Dragon's Lair itself, because as you know, this was the first Laserdisc game, and it was a pretty big deal. And I don't know if you remember what the moment you saw this game, but I have a pretty good picture of the Top Arcade, and seeing this thing in action for the first time, just being like, oh my god! And Don Bluth is a legend. I've watched The Sword in the Stone and all these older movies, and then suddenly I'm looking at it and I'm like, you could play this, you can control this, it's incredible. And it's not like the other arcades, where you have your board and this is the Laserdisc. So was it more challenging to get this particular game, like a Laserdisc focused game, as opposed to a game like with a more traditional type of setup as far as like the tech, the original tech?
Yeah, so I'll tell you right now, it's not as easy that we have one solution for every game. In fact, we have different solutions for different games. So for example, all of our Atari games run off the same chip, and you could tell this by the way they turn on, right? So all the Atari games turn on the same way, kind of run the same way. And we found that was the best chip for like vector graphics, and it works. And so now we'll use that going forward for games that require it. In the case of Dragon's Lair or Street Fighter, they're again on two different boards. that we had to develop to make the game run properly. It's not easy to get these games to run properly. I'm amazed that some of the guys are hobbyists and can pull this stuff off, because it takes us a long time, and we test and we test and we test to make sure everything's working good, right? So in the case of Dragon's Lair, it was again a whole new PCBA layout, all that stuff.
Wow.
But luckily, there's Daphne as an emulator.
Yes,
right?
I was going to ask about where. So let me ask you, when you're like, for Dragon's Lair, for example, we're going to stick with that. I would assume you guys play the games, I guess, for a little bit, right? To kind of, what kind of research you do? Do you play the games? Have you played the port? For example, like there's a Sega CD port of this. There was,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, when we first started Dragon's Lair, we were doing an Android conversion, an HD conversion that Digital Leisure, had put on Blu-rays and DVDs and stuff like that. And we're looking at the aspect ratio and the cutscenes, and it was very clean and looked nice and everything. But and we wanted the 4:3 aspect ratio. We wanted to have the screen blanking. We wanted to, same with all of our games, we want to have as much layers of detail.
Yes.
So when you're looking at that Dragon's Lair and you're like, you know what, I'm really impressed with this. It's all those layers of detail that make that, right? And
yes.
And we want to just be as
close
to the experience as
possible.
A lot
of layers of detail. Yeah, I could see you guys put a lot of thought and love into this. And just so everybody who's watching, just so you understand how much detail and how much love went into this particular cabinet, let me introduce you to the back panel of this. The sound, by the way, is incredible. But if you look down here,
we take a lot of pride in the audio of all the games.
I didn't know this was here. And this came out, and I was like, what is this thing? I was like, what's going on with this? Why is there a secret compartment? And it's a Laserdisc player with the replica, with the Laserdisc. I gotta put that back on its at the top. But the level. I stuck it to the top by mistake. Oh, geez, here we go. But yeah, the level of detail, the lengths you guys went to include, these little Easter eggs almost, just hidden it's really lovely. Like, it's such a beautiful touch. I was so surprised because I was, playing it, and my son's like, Dad, he's like, there's something here. I'm like, no, you're gonna break it. I'm like, what are you doing? Pop it out, and I'm like, holy moly, this is unbelievable. So, you can really tell. This is just one of the things that I'm saying, that you guys put a lot of love into making these things as accurate and just as fun as possible. Not just playing them, but the actual aesthetic of it is beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about the decision-making process behind what games, because like I said before, you guys are kind of all over the map. It's remarkable. It's really interesting to me that you said you actually have to develop different chipsets. So you're not pulling like an at games here where you're just like, all right, slap it all on a chip and let's just move it out. No, you're actually taking the time to make sure that proper technology is used to get the best result possible, which is pretty incredible considering that you guys have a pretty decent price point for the amount of work and the amount of effort that it seems to be taking to research and to build these things. So what is it? What makes you decide? Is it just personal preference? Is it just, nostalgia that you feel personally? Or, do you reach out and try to get licenses and see like which ones come back and decide? Like, how does that process work?
That's a bit of all of that, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like I touched on earlier, it sure would be a lot easier if we could use the same board and the same joystick and the same everything on every game. We would probably have a heck of a lot more games out right now.
Sure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Of course, when you're in the development process, not only making it run properly and play properly, but also to look properly and all that type of stuff all takes time, right? So, with the case of licensing, I think that's kind of where everything starts. And it's important to us that everything is legit. And you know, people are getting the proper amount of, you know, royalties and all that type of stuff for their IP, right? So that's part of it. But also we want to touch on, you know, from the very beginning. I mean, we started as a Kickstarter, you know, and from the beginning, it's always been with New Wave. It's been, you know, we want to do things that we really couldn't do in a big, huge company, like things like the Laserdisc player in the back. You know what I mean? These are the things that a big company's. What do you want to do that for? Are you crazy? You know? It costs money and it takes time and this, that. But I mean, these are the things that are fun and make it special. You know, so we've always wanted to hit on kind of every gen of the arcade experience. Like I kind of touched on earlier, I mean, this has been my life, you know. You know, like from a little kid, like I mentioned, like through the 80s in the golden era, you know, even into the early 90s and stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
You know, games like Narc, right?
Narc is something, yeah.
You know, even going up to like Crazy Taxi and Silent Scope and these, like I love all this stuff. I mean, we love all this stuff, and we want to hit on every kind of era, and you know, not just be golden age games, right? Or you know, we want to hit all the genres, we want to hit all the areas, but everything takes time. And we actually found ourselves the last E3 when it was on, kind of got a little ahead of ourselves announcing games and stuff like that, and we're not going to do that again. We're going to, you know, make sure they're ready to go before we start announcing. But that process that you're talking about, I mean, really, it boils down to hitting those generations and hitting the games that were meaningful and also, you know, beautiful. You know, I mean, one of the next Atari games we have coming up is Missile Command, and just the artwork on it is so good.
Oh boy, that's a good one.
Yeah,
but it's a fun one.
Also, it has a trackball, so we have some experience with trackballs now.
Right. And yeah. So you laid that groundwork, so now you can just kind of build off of that. So let's talk a little bit about. Let's get away from the cabinets for a minute. Let's talk about some of the other products, because you have some really interesting things. Again, you know, quite a mix there. You know, you have the boombox, the coin changer USB charger. I don't know if you have any of those there. You want to hold them up so we can see.
In fact, I'm really glad you brought that up, John. So, yeah, we're trying to do things that are unique, right?
Look at that. Oh, boy.
This is the USB charge machine that you're alluding to, and of course it has the ports on the back. Right?
That's a whole lot of ports.
But this is a new colorway we have coming out. A lot of people have asked for it. Currently, we have the brown, the wood green style, right?
That's the one I was always used to.
Particular blue and white version also. And so, you know, this works with Replicade, right? You power your machines, but you can also use it as a family to charge your phones and your iPad, like that, right? Yeah. So this was a line extension, and it turned out to be a really great experiment, and we're really happy with it. Another thing that's an extension is, which you mentioned, was the boom boxes, right? So,
oh my God.
So this is a 1/6 scale version of JVC's M90. It's you know, basically this was the cream of the crop when it
that was the one you went through the neighborhood with, and you were like, oh, look at that guy, oh my God, he's the coolest guy in town. You roller skate past people looking like a total badass with that thing. So that's remarkable. The one product that really stuck out for me when I was looking through the catalog of things you offer, because like I said, it's quite a variety. It's a beautiful, beautiful device. I remember those things in the 80s. Oh Lord, they were lovely.
You know what's funny about boomboxes, just to talk a little bit more about them, was they were aspirational. You know, this particular boombox, this was featured on LL Cool J's album cover for radio.
Yes, that's right.
You know, the Beastie Boys are constantly seen what this thing, but
Sure.
it was like $800 back in the day.
Yeah, no, it was a fortune to have one of those things. Yeah, it was. I mean, those were not
And-
cheap. Boomboxes were. Yeah. Mhm.
So I think we all had boom boxes, but they, if you were me, it was a cheap, Radio
Oh,
Shack.
we had the small, yeah, exactly. We had the little, we had the Casio keyboard equivalent of the boombox. Those little, we had the little small guys. So, yeah, those are very nice practical things. The one that stood out, which is very interesting to me, is the replica mat that you guys make. It's such an interesting product. Now, I looked at that thing and I immediately went back to, birthday parties of my youth, because it seemed like every place that you went to that had arcades inevitably had a floor like that, or rug like that, or just that one or similar almost, right? It was almost like they all bought from the same place, except, they were usually full of gum and cigarette butts and whatever. But it's remarkable that you guys took the time to make that little thing. You could put it under the arcade. It's really funny and really another fun little thing that you guys make. What other kind of products are you kind of, what direction are you going into? What are some of the ideas that are popping out of your head? I want to get that, to see where you guys are going. And I also want to go back a little bit to the arcade technology, because it sounded like, now I'm going to put words in your mouth, but it sounded like you were saying maybe you guys are going to start doing some 3D stuff. Is that what you were trying to say there before? Different generations, iconic games. What are we doing here? What's going on? Come on, go on.
First of all, I want to talk about the UV mats that you mentioned, and these type of products, which we do have more in the pipeline, are all to build your home arcade, right? And to build a diorama of it, and people are getting creative, and love blacklight effects is just so awesome.
Yeah,
so,
great.
So a lot of guys, and we get a lot of our customers are super creative, and they send us pictures of their setups and stuff. We share them on social media, and some people have some really great stuff. They build in their own black lights, and so there's definitely a couple more products that are coming in that vein that we'll be announcing a little bit later on in the year. Great. And to your other question, yes, we are going to be doing some games that are more modern.
That's okay. All right. You don't have to spill all the beans right now, but so I mean, have you been paying attention to, because somewhat recently Sega released the Astrocade Mini, and for the first time we're seeing viable emulation of 32 their 32 bits boards and Virtua Fighter and things like that. Are you guys paying attention to that? Are you trying to see maybe how do they pull that off? Because it seems like that's one of those challenges that you guys are going to have to really figure out a way to get in there and get it at a decent price point, because the tech it's a little bit more expensive to get that going, I would assume, right? To make that work properly.
Well, I mean, honestly, it might be a little bit more expensive to actually, if you're looking at the components that we would have to upgrade, our adding memory and stuff like that. We want to keep our price point reasonable. Right now it's $120, and I mean, it's still a lot of money. It really is, So we
worth it. Honestly, I got to tell you, the retro market. I'm sure you've seen. I mean, it's exploded, and you guys are right there, proof positive of that. I mean, there's a big market out there, and there's a lot of products, and there's a lot of crap out there. I mean, you see, I'm sure you've a lot of garbage, and then there's very little shame, it seems, as far as what people will charge for some of these products, and what you guys are putting out there. It's worth every penny, and I'm not just saying this because it's you. I was saying this before, when I got this thing and I started playing with it the first time, I go, I paid $15 for this thing? This is crazy, because this it's incredible that you guys can do that.
Guys have won tournaments with that stick, playing with the mini stick.
I love it. I actually use it for shmups a lot. I shoot them up in the, and that sort of thing. I really enjoy that. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So let's talk a little bit about, if we're talking about the retro gaming industry, where do you see it going? I mean, it's things have changed. Things are accelerating. Like what kind of?
I think for us, we're in it for the long run. Like I said, we want to expand into the different gens of our arcade collectibles, and I'm really happy with the community we've built of hardcore fans, and they keep us on our toes, and quite frankly, we look to a lot of these guys to help us with projects, because we want to get as much minutia into the cabinets as possible, right? Just that, like you mentioned the little Laserdisc player, like getting the details on that thing right, it's important to us. And
absolutely.
I think all the groundwork we've done over the first few years here, it's going to set us up for the long haul. We traditionally come from load product into retailers and hope it sells through, basically,
Right.
And you're counting on these big retail orders and stuff like that. And since the beginning with New Wave, we've always wanted to really build more of a B2C model. It just feels better. You feel connected to the community, and the feedback and passion everybody has. It just keeps growing. It's funny. We're the smallest. I would say we're the smallest company out of all of the players.
Sure, I would say so. Yeah.
I also want to mention my other business partner, Steve Arbib, is been absolutely instrumental. It's funny. It's like, it's a small company, and somebody once told me, it's like, do you want to be a big part of nothing, or do you want to be a smaller part of something bigger, right? And so us as a team, we're growing. We're trying to be responsible in our growth, and really from last year, we were blown away how fast we've been selling out of things, honestly.
Oh yeah, you can't get these. You can't. You just good luck. It's like they're selling as fast as you guys can build them. They're gone pretty much. I mean, as far as selling out product, you guys are on par with Nintendo as far as, you know what I mean? They put out the products like, it's gone, goodbye, good luck, getting one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. That's a really great business model. I mean, Nintendo's smart, right?
Yes.
So I do want to bring this up. Our next game, if you want to switch.
I was about to tell you, let's start bringing out the fun stuff. This is it. This is the next big one. 1942. Right. My goodness, look at that. Oh boy, wow. Oh, that's great. Oh, that is great. Everybody, world premiere. This is the world premiere of the 1942.
We've shown earlier prototypes, but this is a lot farther down the line than what we've.
That looks great. So what can we look forward to with that? What do we have? Give us some of the goods here, some of the bonus features, some of the,
Yep. Well, why don't we run through it real quick? So, of course, like all of our games, a solid wood construction, and this one has really nice veneer all around, actually. Wood veneer, and of course, standard light up marquee.
Absolutely.
You gotta have that, right? Yeah. Our first up, so we have more of a spring style joystick, and of course the ROMstar control panel overlay, right? And as you go down a little bit further, this is a low boy profile. It's super unique and really, really cool. And you'll notice the Japanese style coin mech. The gold and the silver, right? So that's another thing we do, is we always make if something's metal, we make it out of metal, right? It just adds to our authenticity. So it's looking fantastic. This is based on first shot plastic tooling. So we are almost finished tooling, and we plan on putting pre-sale, in the coming weeks. Now, if you come around to the back here,
there we go.
stereo speakers, but HDMI out is something we mentioned already on social media. It's a feature we added into Dragon's Lair. It was a stretch goal in our Kickstarter. Yeah. And a lot of people really like it. Some people don't care, but you know what? They just don't use it. So it doesn't matter. We really like it because we think it adds value.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
Another thing you might notice back there is USB outputs.
USB ports there.
And you might, wow, what's that? What are those for, right? So, of course, those are for external controller support. Same with Dragon's Lair. You can use your modern gaming controllers with Dragon's Lair. You just plug them in.
Yes, and this guy works as well with Dragon's Lair. I was playing earlier with this. Love it.
Get better. So, so this is going to be the added controller, and of course you can see it's 1943. So
okay.
Also plays 1943. Right?
Oh, here we go. I was waiting.
You get the two best ones out of the series, I think, for vertical shooters. This is now back to the micro switches.
Yeah, there you go. It's got to sound like that. That's lovely. Yeah, that's a great sound. Really well done.
This is something that was missing on our others that we've added. It was 2 additional buttons here that act as the coin door buttons, so you can access the game.
Excellent.
So we're gonna have that on the Street Fighter stick, right?
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love it. I thought of that.
It's a 2-player co-op game, right? So it makes sense very much along the lines of a fighting game or any game that's going to be 2 players.
Absolutely.
One of the things that go ahead.
Finish. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so one of the things we did with Asteroids is we had a special overhaul edition, and the whole concept with the overhaul edition is, it's a machine that's been on location for several years. It's been pulled out of its location and it's been touched up, so everything works properly. But it's going to have some, wear and tear on it, right? This is the one we did for Asteroids. You can tell there's the battle scarring on the owl-eyed coin door. The CP is the original CP. It has the cigarette stains on it and burns and stuff like that, right? And the side art, some of it a little bit faded. The T molding has been changed to blue, stuff like that, right? Colors are not factory button colors, etc. So what we did is people really like this. We really have a lot of fun with it. So we have a version for 1943 coming out.
Oh, look at that. Oh, I remember that, kid. Let me see that. Oh,
so this is a factory dynamo cab.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And again, it's the overhaul version, right? So you get subtle things like, the joystick is red, yellow T molding. And then kind of taking it to the next level, like the safety bar across the right?
Yes.
Adds another level. And of course, it's all metal and
that's real attention to detail. Like that's just unbelievable. You guys took the time and to put something like that in there. That really does show a level of dedication that you don't see very often anywhere. That's really amazing. So you guys are, as far as licensees are concerned, it seems like you're kind of branching out a bit. What are the licensees like? What's your dream license? Like what, company where you're just like, God, if we had a chance to make this one, like what would that be?
Well, pretty easy to answer that question. It would be Nintendo.
Okay, all right. That's wow. Okay, a little Punch Out replica, that would be pretty cool.
You know, Donkey Kong and
Mhm.
Popeye and all the other great Nintendo games would be really fun to do. But
Sure.
if you think about licensing, that's, you know, not really in Nintendo's cards, right? So
No, they don't. But Capcom, on the other hand, they do, and you guys have really done them proud. I would have to imagine that they'd take one look at that and they'd be probably very, very happy with you guys, because that is an incredible job, an incredible, once again, not surprising, attention to detail. The cabinet is just, it's remarkable how
So
well you get.
this cabinet plays 1942.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
you know, they play the same games, but
Yeah, absolutely.
just a lot of fun. Like, so with licensing, we have a lot in the works. I could tell you right now, in addition to 1942 and 1943, we just showed you, we do have Command coming. It's going to be this year for sure. We've already previously shown that Missile Command.
Yes.
And we have 3 more titles that will be coming out by the end of the year.
I do see the blanks there, and I'm thinking, what are those outlines of? What is that there? So if you feel like spilling the beans, please, by all means, don't let me stop you.
I can't. I have to go back to what I originally said. Is I wish you could just come on here and say everything, but we need to be smart. And
of course. I know. To say, listen, I got to take what I can get. But I'm really happy you show those cabinets. Those are really, really beautiful cabinets, as you know, as usual, as per you guys. So now I want to kind of open it up a little bit. People are going to have questions and things like that for you. So.
Sure.
So the first question was, of course, supply. When is the next wave coming? When can we expect more cabinets, more Street Fighter, more more Asteroids, more Tempest? So what's going on with that? What are we looking at supply wise?
Well, you know, we want to keep our machines as collectible as possible, but at the same time, we want to make sure everybody that wants one can get one at a decent price. Right now we're in it's a double-edged sword. It's like we always wanted our products to retain their value and grow in value, like a collectible should, without saturating too much stock and keeping it like as an art piece, basically.
Right. Yes.
So you ask about something like Tempest or games that we've already launched. We're still discussing, you know, what we would do with that. We think if we really kind of want to stick to our guns and make every release special, right? So you know, if we are going to reissue something, there's got to be something special about it. So I'm going to leave it at that. But I will tell you, 42 and 43 are next games coming out. Will be up in the early summer. Like I said, we're sort of we're waiting for everybody to get back online, actually, for our partners over in China, because they're on Chinese New Year break right now.
Sure, yes, I remember what that was like. 2 weeks, nobody does anything over there.
No, they get a month off and they take full advantage of it. You know, they're not like us who were working on our vacations or whatever.
Yeah, no. Yeah, they do. Okay.
So you know. That's next up, and you know, we want to do a pre-sale event. We want to give everybody an opportunity to get our products, you know, first at the best price possible. So, you know, if anybody out there, you know, the best way to you know, learn about when things are going to happen is to sign up on our website on our email list, and that's kind of the first to know. And we want to make it like, you know, a special club. So sign up there, and you'll always be the first to know on all this.
UAToys.com. Just want to give you the plug there.
UAToys.com. Yep.
Excellent. And the pre-orders for 1943 open when?
Guys, very, very soon. In the next couple weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we definitely will. So just before we head off, I want to ask you a couple more questions. So obviously we're all retro gamers. That's why we're here. We love the retro games. do you play any modern consoles? What do you think about the modern games that are out there? Are there any in particular that kind of, talk to you a little bit and grab you?
I'll always love playing the NHL series. That's just it's my Madden basically. I love playing it, and I love seeing how it progresses. But I will say this last gen of consoles is probably the one I'm not gonna buy or bring into my house. I'm just kind of, I don't know. I'm way more into what we're doing here, and so I also it's funny. You asked about new stuff. I'm more interested in building my Vectrex collection.
Listen, I'm right there with you. The amount of money I spent on a Famicom disk system it's obscene. The kind of money and time that I spend with these sort of things. I just bought a machine gun from Japan for one game. It's the machine gun they made for a Famicom that literally supports one single game, and I had to have it. I'm like, Xbox, obscure Famicom gun. Obscure machine gun.
Does it look like a real machine gun?
It does. It's remarkable. It will get you killed 100%. I mean,
right.
It actually has a recoil action, so it actually shakes and it moves, which is it's fun. The game that they packed in is not the greatest game, but who cares? The novelty was feeling that thing in your hand. You're like, oh, holy! I'm playing Nintendo, and look at me. It feels like you're playing Operation Wolf almost on your.
Awesome.
So speaking of Operation Wolf, I want to get in a couple of questions about that sort of thing. Do you guys plan on doing any like replica light gun stuff? And I mean, it sounds like a silly question, but you never know.
You know what? It's possible. Yeah. And we're really into this sort of, the cabinet we make is kind of a hub, like when we're showing you, with the HDMI out and the USB outs, the things we could do are basically endless, and there's really no limits. So, we want to touch on every genre, whatever it might be.
You mentioned the USB. It almost sounds like you're hinting towards expansion, like there's going to be expanded functionality for the cabinets. Is that where we're going with this? Maybe some online leaderboards, that sort of thing?
Well, I'm not sure about online, but definitely the home experience.
Mm-hmm.
We want to maximize that in every way we can. And stay tuned. Again, we got some really cool stuff.
So what you're saying is there's a chance. We're saying there's a chance.
There's absolutely.
Driving games, the same thing. I would imagine, that would, be possible. A little steering wheel, maybe, that sort of thing. I don't know about you, but the one game that always stood out is the Iron Man off-road. I don't.
Yes.
I just thought, I was like, how cool would that be? A little Iron Man mini with a couple of, 3 little wheels going on there. So, I
love that game. That is such a staple and such a fun game. Yeah. I just love it.
Yeah.
The nitros.
you hear that horn like that's the sound that always stands out in my head. So all right, so
many great games that have been untapped,
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So you're looking all everywhere. You're looking at those possibilities, and that gives me hope, because I'm very big into that, and I'm obsessed with Operation Wolf, Operation Thunderbolt, and the fact that there's even a minute chance that I might see them in a miniature, it just makes me so incredibly happy. I guess please keep doing what you're doing, for the love of God. There's way too much garbage out there. And really refreshing to see, quality stuff being put out there, for once. There's way too many games and way too few new wave toys, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I'll tell you one driving game that's probably the highest or most aspirational, is I would love to do an 18-wheeler. It's just such a fun game in the arcade, and I grew up. My dad's a truck driver.
Oh, wow!
My whole life, my dad has been a trucker, so it kind of means something for me in that sense too, But I'd love to do an 18 mini.
That would be really, really cool. So any of those Dreamcast level getting pretty remarkable. Yeah, I mean, so one more thing, consoles.
Yeah.
Is that ever going to be on the table? Do you think you'll ever do anything in the console direction? Because I'm sure you've played with a lot of plug and plays. I actually just found a batch of my old plug and plays, and they're decent or whatever. But is that something that you would ever, a road you would go down, maybe?
You know, it's funny with plug and plays. I don't know if what you mean by you found your batch, but are you talking about the ones that came out in the early 2000s?
Yes, the Jack specific,
You know, when I was a buyer at Virgin, I was the first one to bring that in from Jack's. I saw like a little tiny ad for that 2600 system. I'm like, people are gonna love this, you know. And it's got the AV cables out, right?
Wow.
And then we did the Namco ones and stuff. So
yeah.
I really like those. I think Jack's did a really good job at those particular plug and plays.
They did.
If you look at that TV games or the plug and play segment,
Sure.
it blew up. It got ridiculous.
Yeah.
And retail. I mean, there was sections of them,
Mhm.
and then it just died.
Yeah, the market was very saturated, but they really made an effort. I don't know if you saw the Batman one, but it's an actual original Batman game. I mean, you can't get that game anywhere else. It's just, and it's fun. It's a quality title. So it, I have to say that
It's an original game. Yeah. So, anyways, yes, we're looking at some console stuff.
You are looking at console
sure,
stuff,
but we're also looking at. Again, going back to our company, being smart about our growth, and how much we could take on and stuff like that. So this year we got a full gamut of really, really fun things that are coming, starting here with 1942 and 43.
Mm-hmm.
And, who knows what the future might hold.
That's very, very cool. I like that you're open to that. And, the reason I ask that is because judging from the quality of your arcade bills, I can only imagine how cool it would be. I mean, if you guys came out with like a Dreamcast, and we know Sega's never going to do this, right? Like a Dreamcast Mini or Sega Saturn Mini. But if you guys were to do something, I can imagine it would be something, and the world would explode with anticipation.
We would want it to be right, that's for sure.
Sure.
We don't want to disappoint anybody. I'll tell you, going back to our products beyond gaming, we touched on the music stuff, right? Electronics and stuff like that. But I'll also give you another little hint that we're looking at some movie-based, very interesting things. I think people are really going to like for this year too. So we got a couple of little surprises in store for everybody. So it's gonna be a fun year.
That's very cool. I'm really glad to hear it. I'm really looking forward to it. So before we go, let's make sure everybody knows where to get the cool stuff. It's newwavetoys.com, correct? You can sign up for the newsletter there and be updated on all the products. Pre-orders are going out soon for 1942, 1943. Are they going to be available 1942 and then 43 cabinet, or like one and the other, or both at the same time? What are we looking at?
They're both going to be, both cabinets will play both games.
Okay.
And they will fit within a very close window. Normally we usually finish production on one before we move into the other, but they'll be very close together.
Okay. Excellent. And as far as reissues, maybe not. Second waves?
Stay tuned. It needs to be special. We don't want to take away any of the value of the collectability of what we've already launched. But you know what? If we could figure out something that we think makes it special enough, we're definitely looking at it. And again, it goes back to this whole thing that's going on eBay. It's just ridiculous.
Scalpers are just out of control. It's too much. It's terrible.
Too much. We don't want people to have to pay that much money for stuff.
Right.
So,
yeah. It's balance. Yeah. Well, that's really, really great. Okay, so we're going to end it here. We've had our hour, and before we go, if there's anything else you want to say, you want to, get out there,
I just want to thank everybody for their support over these years as we've started as a startup. I mean, we started, as a couple guys, and we're really proud of what we've done, and we've made our fair share of mistakes, and we're just trying to get better and better, and we want the quality to continue to improve. And I just want to thank everybody for sticking with us that's been there, especially from the beginning, or have come on board. Welcome. And we would be nowhere if it wasn't for the communities. So I mean,
well, I just want to say
one more thing. Nothing beats the original arcade experience.
True.
So go play the games in our arcade, and it really get a sense of the magic that they were and they are still. And our goal is to be number 2. So because nothing's gonna be number 2.
I like that. Our goal is to be number 2. That's really wonderful.
Number 2.
We're number 2. We're number 2. Listen, I want to thank you for coming on. This has been a lot of fun, and I'm sure everybody, really, really enjoyed this. And we're all looking. I'm going to speak for everyone in the retro community right now and tell you that we're all looking forward to what you guys are going to come out with next, because you've really done an incredible job, and you've really proven to all of us, I think, as a community, that you're willing to go the extra mile, and you're not going to cut corners, and you're not going to make anything cheap and nasty. You're going to take the time. You're going to do it right, and it shows. It shows. The quality of your products is evident. I mean, it's remarkable. And I'm just saying, hey, guys out there, if you're lucky enough to get a hold of one of these cabinets, you'll see. It'll blow your mind just how well they play and how great they sound. I mean, the design, the detail, the artwork, everything just, it's as close as you can get to the arcade, in a miniature form that I've ever seen. So I want to wish you guys the best of luck going forward, and I'm just looking forward to all of your stuff. And I hope to see you guys back here. And maybe when LIRetro, when we start doing our live shows again, we would absolutely love to have you there as a participant. Be part of the experience, because we do, like you said, we have full-size arcades, we have a gigantic arcade, we've got a lot of games, and you guys would fit in like perfectly right in there. So hopefully we'll get a chance to do that in the future.
Let's hope, and thank you so much for those kind words. Really appreciate it, and that's what keeps us going. We just want to make people happy and put a smile on their face. There's nothing better, especially in this day and age.
We all need it now more than ever. Absolutely. Now is the time we need it. Yes, you're absolutely right about that. Yeah. All right. So thank you again so much, Shilo, for coming out with us. And we'll talk to you hopefully sometime soon. All right. Thank you. All right, guys. Thanks everyone who tuned in and saw us and checked us out. We really appreciate everyone coming in. So we hope you enjoyed it. And like we said, go to newwavetoys.com, look for the pre-orders, sign up for the newsletter. And let's go. Retro. Bye, everybody.
Keep it real. Bye, everybody. Thank you. All right.